Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on mapping buildings inside and out. We are going to explore the very hot topic today of interior and exterior mapping. This is part of the Spatial IQ for MapGeo educational webinar series. We've been hosting these webinars for the past 5 years, maybe 4 years, with the aim to introduce local government to interesting topics to help them build their spatial IQ. We also have a library of about 15 webinars, I think now, that we've done over the past 5 years. We have a link at the end of our presentation today with a link to the past webinars in our library. So just to go over some basic logistics, everybody is in listen only mode. And there you'll have a Q&A and a chat box at the very bottom of your webinar. We will be using the chat box and the Q&A throughout the presentation. We will check the Q&A box at the end, and we have a couple of polls that we'll do during the webinar, so you'll use the chat box for those. And today's webinar is being recorded. This will be added to our webinar library series, and we will share the recording after today's presentation. Next slide, please. So just to go over some of the spatial IQ for MapGeo benefits and the program itself, we have a spatial IQ is a managed service program that is designed to help subscribers make the most out of their MapGeo subscription. Throughout the year, we can help the subscribers to strategically plan and advance their GIS with different capabilities, expanding the uses and benefits of their GIS. Depending on what tier you're on, you get a couple of different levels of support from us. We encourage the subscribers to push the limits of their MapGeo subscription and increase the capabilities to empower their staff to play a higher role in their municipalities' GIS program. Excuse me. So today's agenda, we are going to be talking to BIMstream, who is going to walk us through some interior and exterior mapping and some different drone mapping use cases. And then we will get to our Q&A. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into mapping buildings. You'll hear a couple of different buzzwords like digital twin, drone imagery that we'll be using throughout today's webinar. And again, if there's any questions, you can throw them right in that Q&A box and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So I will introduce myself first. I'm Rebecca Talamini Davis. I think most of you have probably seen me on these webinars for the past couple years now. I am a project manager and on the Spatial IQ for MapGeo team. Priya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Priya Sankalia. I am also a project manager at AppGeo. Also been on these webinars, several of them for the last 5 years, and really excited to hear from Tommy about interior and exterior mapping, really hot topics. So hope you enjoy the webinar.
So before I let Tommy introduce himself, I will just give you a little bit of background about BIMstream. BIMstream is an organization that is a group of architects, engineers, and creative technologists who combine bleeding edge technology with world-class artistry to solve your toughest challenges by scanning, modeling, and delivering accurate 3D data. Tommy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Tommy Jacobson. I'm here representing BIMstream. I've been with BIMstream for coming up on 3 years now. And I'm excited to kind of take a little deep dive into everything we're doing and hopefully give some of you some ideas on how it can help you be more efficient and be more productive in your own work styles.
All right, so Tommy, I'm going to pass it right over to you to get started. You can talk to us about BIM and some of the fascinating projects that you guys have been working on.
Awesome. So to start out, we're going to just watch this quick little video. I think it's a pretty cool video that one of our guys, Mike Demore, did in-house. And this kind of just gives you a little preview of everything we're about here at BIMstream and just a little glimpse into some of the data products that we deliver. All right, I'm going to jump back over to the slideshow now. So as you guys can see, that's a pretty cool video that shows a lot of different visualization styles, a lot of different ways that we can display data, a couple action shots of us in the field with some of our various LiDAR scanners that we use. In addition to LiDAR, we also use 360 imagery cameras that are really good for assessing conditions on site and reviewing kind of progress tracking, things that we'll dive into later on. And we also use drones, which we'll also be discussing. So we're going to start out with interior mapping. Here are a couple images, one of me at Fenway in the dugout. That was a pretty exciting project for us. We're working with them to, as they kind of undergo some facilities renovations. And then the other two images show two examples of how your data can be displayed. The one up top is a rendering, which shows a floor plan layout. It features an auditorium area on the right side, as well as some office spaces and some other function rooms. And then down below is a PDF floor plan that we also deliver along with this set of deliverables. And then just touching on some of the different verticals that we cover, some exciting ones that we do. We work with schools, we work with hospitals, office buildings, churches. We do a lot of sporting facilities like field houses, rinks, gymnasiums, stadiums. We do theaters and entertainment venues, parking garages, biotech labs, apartments, condos, warehouses, you name it, restaurants, farms. We always love the challenge of working on a new project. And that's kind of one of the exciting parts of this field is a lot of times we can tell someone what we do, but a light bulb oftentimes goes off in their head and then they bring us a new idea or a new challenge. And we're always happy to collaborate on those kinds of projects to come up with some unique solutions for them. So I'm going to just kind of cover our main deliverables here. So there's two main deliverables, and one's a 3D model, which that's designed in Revit. And so that captures visualizations and renderings of the actual building, whereas our reality model is using actual images, usually captured by our drone, to give you a lifelike. They're both lifelike, but that gives you actual images that are stitched together to create a 3D model. So those are used in two different ways. The building information model, that's interactive. That's where it has all those floor by floor renderings. It has the full model that you saw as kind of taking elevations and sections from in that video. And that also stores all of your 2D, all your 2D PDF drawings. It can store CAD drawings, ceiling and MEP plans, and it really streamlines collaboration between different AEC teams or different kind of bodies that will be working on your specific project. Whereas the aerial reality mesh is really good for site visualization on the exterior. It can really help with sun studies and traffic studies, just as well as safety planning and emergency response planning and things like that. And also facade and site inspection, since they're actual images that you're looking at.
Tommy, can you show us some examples of the deliverables, specifically the 3D BIM models?
Absolutely. So let me just go through here. So this is an example of what the building information model looks like. We use a combination of LiDAR scans, 360 imagery, and a whole different array of survey techniques in order to produce a lifelike digital twin for you. And so here on the top right, you can see this is the John Hancock building in Boston, along with the original John Hancock building. This is the tower, and the building across is the big glass building, which is actually the tallest building in New England. So with this, on each floor, you can go to any floor. Here's the first floor, the ground floor. It shows the auditorium they have, as well as office spaces. This is a gym. And this is a cool way to kind of ceiling roof off, so you can kind of visualize a floor rather than just the PDF black and white lines, which give you the layout, and it's very useful for certain applications. But sometimes this kind of roof off model is really helpful for visualization and planning. This is another example. So with a little artistry and a little bit more modeling, we can take those 3D models and we can put it into This is called an application called Enscape, and this is really good for VR, for virtual tours, just for more lifelike renderings. You can design in here, so you can show what future renovations might look like, or you can kind of build different schematics and figure out what's going to be the best option for your project moving forward. Or just for applications like virtual tours where you can show families where to drop off their kids out of school, for example, or emergency response planning, anything like that. And this just allows you just a different tool for visualization. Again, all our models are super dynamic. We can always kind of tweak things on them, which is pretty beneficial depending on what you're doing. And then this is just our aerial model, third example. So these are actual images. We use the drone, we fly around at different elevations and different altitudes and with different camera angles. And we have software that can actually stitch all of those thousands of images together to create a lifelike model. And this is really good for facade inspections, site inspections, traffic studies. Again, it just depends on kind of the area of interest, the scope, and just your different intents for your project. So those are just three of the main products that we're able to use for different use cases. So here we're going to jump into some actual projects that we've done, just so you can see kind of how that data looks when you order it up or when you get it delivered, and so you can start visualizing how it can help you on your future project. So we're going to start with a public school in the Northeast. So this main focus was for emergency response planning and safety planning. So we started with a aerial model, and as you can see, we captured the whole site and the surrounding streets. So this is super beneficial for them. They can see all the exterior doors. They can figure out where windows are. They can look and see what's on the roof. And this is really good in planning kind of the first steps in emergency response. On here, it's pretty cool. You got a couple of tools on here, so you can do some measurements. So I can click a point here and see, and it will give you the measurements down here on the bottom. I'm going to go back. Here's a model from Thompson Arena. It's a hockey arena up at Dartmouth College that we recently did. We captured this with both the aerial model, and this is the building information model that I'm going to show you now. This is going to be used in planning for future renovations that they're going to be doing. Oftentimes the first step is figuring out what do we have to work with, and how can we make these renovations. So what's cool is, as you can see, different things are kind of being highlighted as I move around. You can select different elements. And as you saw in the video briefly, you can isolate this. I just want to see this. I can see the different properties of this. I can see exactly how much space it takes up. And depending on kind of the level of detail you want, we can get right down to the serial number on this specific unit, so that if you ever needed to replace it or do repairs on it, it makes it a lot easier just having everything stored. So over here, this is where you're going to have, sorry about that. This is where you can actually select different levels. So if I go to ice level, it'll strip it down. I can see the ice level. I can see some of the locker rooms that surround it. Looks like we have a little, some kind of boiler room right here. You can see the different structures, all the different components that make up the building. So it's super helpful in just in building management and design and planning for renovations, like I said earlier. And then let me also just show you how I can select different things to select. So I can just refresh here. So we have the model, and let's say I want to just see, I want to take the roof off just so I can see directly in. So this is cool. It unveils the roof, and you can see the actual rink and the stadium area. Here I can select, here are the lights, and it can show you the exact type of light. I'm going to jump out and now show how this compares to the aerial model that we captured here. So this is the aerial model captured. Again, this is the way they kind of differ is that inside one is really good for measurements and for understanding how the different systems like mechanical and electrical and plumbing systems move throughout the building. Whereas this can be super valuable in inspectional purposes and site visualization. So you can really understand on another level what you're dealing with here. Here you can get right into it and see all the different components on the outside. And I know just a big use case here was for inspection of the roof and the condition of the roof. So now I'm going to jump into another project we did. This is a pretty exciting project. It's the Long Island Rehabilitation Hospital Restoration Project. And this is a hospital that's on an island in Boston Harbor in Massachusetts. And it's been closed for some time now. And the bridge was actually knocked down that leads out to the island. And so some of these buildings are suffering from some pretty serious deterioration just because due to lack of upkeep. So the state of Massachusetts is undergoing, I believe it's $650 million renovation project that starts with a $20 million stabilization phase. And in the stabilization phase, they're going to be doing things like inspecting the different roofs. They're going to be installing a dry fire sprinkler system just to prevent any further deterioration of these buildings. So we went out and mapped out all of the different buildings on campus here. We spent a couple of weeks out there. So this is pretty cool because this gives you all the square footage, any kind of information on their mechanical and electrical and plumbing systems throughout the building. Here, I'm going to strip it down to the first floor. So as you can see, this gives you insight on exactly what you have in each building, the different layouts. So here they can start kind of doing some design on how they wish to renovate it and how they wish to utilize different spaces. I'm going to go and I'm going to turn off the ceilings here so that we can actually see into the room. And what's exciting is this is exactly what you'll be looking at as a client. So as you kind of sit here and think how this can help you, this link can be shared with any team you have working with you. So you can connect any contractor you have, anyone working on the project, anyone who really needs to understand the space who might not have actually stepped foot in there. They can log into this and they can really take the tour. You can actually use VR goggles and you can walk right through the space. And then again, so this is the building information model. And so now I'm actually going to go and I'm going to click into the aerial model just so you can kind of compare. And this is what they'll actually be using for facade inspection, roof inspection. Another cool feature that you can use, this is a pretty large capture, so it might take just a little second to render. But what's cool is you can plug these aerial captures into different programs and you're able to actually click on a point. And if I click on this point, it can bring up different photographs of that actual point. So you can see it in even higher resolution than this. But as far as the inspection goes, this is definitely the quickest way to do it. Traditionally, you're out on site, which requires getting on a Boston police boat out to this island, and you're taking thousands and thousands of images from the ground. So you can't always see up onto the roof or on different things like that. Here you can just see some different mechanical elements on the roof. So this is really good. And then you can also assess the different overgrowth areas and see and really start to make a plan of attack for restoring this property. Oh, I'm going to pop into a fun one. Sorry about that. Fenway Park. This is a pretty exciting project, like I mentioned before. America's oldest ballpark, so it's always cool to be in there. Here is a section of the building information model that we created, starting on the dugout, and this goes all the way back to the street, and it includes the locker rooms and the different training rooms. My computer's working pretty hard right now for between the screen share and everything and pulling up all these models on the fly. But as you can see, pretty lifelike. I could actually drop in some VR goggles again and walk right down the tunnel, just like I'm a Boston Red Sox. And then let's see here. I'm just going to go, let's go into the locker room. So everyone always wants to see the locker room. So I can select that and it will bring me right to the locker room right in here. And as you can see, all these different features are modeled. So any structural, all the speakers they have in the locker room, fans, all of the mechanical systems. So if you have a school and you need to completely refit all of the HVAC, this is a perfect place to start because you know exactly how much you have, you know where it is, how it operates. And with that, you're able to kind of sub out to the best bidder. You can say, instead of having a company come in and spend weeks to do all these measurements and then give you a quote and also a bill in the mail for that assessment, you can say, this is what we have, this is what we need, who's going to give us the best price? And it really streamlines projects from the very beginning. Another interesting use case, this is a small section of a seawall that we did. So this is terrestrial photogrammetry. So we used a DSLR camera here. It's geolocated. And this is a seawall in Duxbury, Massachusetts, where our office is located. And they've had some issues. They've had to repair it. It's been a constant battle between the town and the homeowners to decide who's responsible for maintaining the seawall. And so a good first step is just understanding what the condition is of it on a certain date. So this was captured in August 2022. So we basically have a good baseline. So any future deterioration can be measured. You can always look back. It can always be recaptured so that you have different kind of progress increments. And I actually joined the kids here and I used a little bit of charcoal and wrote down BIMstream on the wall there. So I also have some different models that we can dive into just to show some different use cases. This is Grand Rapids, Michigan. Here's a building that after the architecture firm already had bid on their project, they realized, the town came to them and they said, oh, actually, this is a historic building. And they gave them all new requirements for that, how they had to proceed. So the first thing they did was had us come out so that they can get a baseline, because they're going to need to preserve a lot of these facades, or they're going to need to prove to the city that this facade is not worth saving. So there's some areas where it's actually pretty badly deteriorating. So down here you can see just a lot of deterioration in this wall and this facade. But this is just a really good baseline so that the town and the architecture firm working with the property owner can all be on the same page. And even without being on site, they can all kind of be looking at the same things and being on the same page about what they're talking about. And so in addition to this exterior capture and the interior mapping, another very useful deliverable that a lot of companies that we work with are utilizing is our 360 imagery. And so we're able to host 360 imagery online so that, again, without ever stepping foot on site, you can see the exact conditions, even on the inside, kind of like the photogrammetry. So these are actual 360 images of the site. And so you can navigate around here to see what everything looks like. And you can do this as progress updates so you can see it throughout your project. You can just keep track of how things are going depending on how often we capture it. This has a whole map. You can go to different floors, the whole 9 yards. And this is a really good tool for people to understand spaces just in another way. And there's actually, so that's one of the ways that we can show that. And here's a second way. This is another app that we use called Struction Site. This is with our 360 camera, and this is exactly what you would see. You would see all the different floor plans for each floor. This is for a construction project that we were kind of monitoring. So we were actually going out once a month and doing progress reports based on the different stages of demolition and renovation. So as you can see here, all the walls are down. So they're kind of in a mid stage in the demolition progress. But if I go down and I adjust my timeline, I can see what it looks like a few months later. And it actually looks, or a few months earlier, sorry. So this was a few months earlier, a lot earlier in their demolition process, obviously. And this is just really good. Another tool, these photos are a bit blurry. That's my mistake. But yeah, just a really good tool to, again, keep everyone on the same page, even if they're working remote, and just keep track of all the progress on everything there. So I have a couple other, I'll show two more, I'll show a couple more just for different use cases. So I'm going to show Island Creek Oyster Farm here in Duxbury, Massachusetts. That's where we're out of. We travel all over though. We're always willing to travel. And since it's such a specialized kind of thing that we're doing, we don't prefer to sub anything out to any subcontractors or any other scanning companies. We like to keep it all in-house so we really understand the project and we can really trust the data. So this is Island Creek Oyster Farm. They have a whole campus with a restaurant up here. If you're ever in the Massachusetts South Shore area, I highly recommend it. If you're here in the summer, they have a pretty cool oyster raw bar down here. And it's all served out of this truck. This is in winter mode, so they're actually a little bit more in farming mode than summer raw bar mode. And then they also have a restaurant up the hill here. But what's cool about this one is we captured this at dead low tide so that we could really see the elevation of the mud and the marsh, as well as their basin down here. And this is to help them understand what they have to work with the land. It gets a little bumpy in the reflection from the water, but this is really good for flood analysis. They have a few buildings that they actually need to renovate. This is one of them here, and they're actually going to need to raise this up on stilts because of, they determined based on what we found with the different digital elevation models that we provided them, that's actually very susceptible, as you could have guessed, right on the beach here, very susceptible to flooding. So that's a very useful tool. And they actually realize that these buildings are actually good to go. So they won't need to do those added measures of putting them up on stilts. So those are some of the applications that they're using it for. And we also did the entire campus model for the building information model, like you saw for Long Island Hospital. Here's the Miles Standish Monument. The town, in the town of Duxbury, they're using this to assess the conditions of the stone. Some people were complaining of finding fallen stones down here. So there clearly is some kind of deterioration going on. And obviously it's tough to get up here. This is Miles Standish. He was the first governor of Plymouth Colony, and he holds the scroll pointing to Plymouth, the deed for the Plymouth Colony. And this is super useful. They realized, looks like we have an osprey nest up here. That's going to need to be removed. And then they can just go up and down this whole monument just to kind of assess different areas of interest. And as you can see, you can get pretty detailed views of what's going on in here. So those are most of the ones I wanted to dive into.
So tell me, what exactly, I mean, I know there's a lot of use cases here, but what's the equipment that you use for a lot of this? Is it a combination of drones and handheld devices?
Yeah, so anytime you see one like this, this is all pictures from the drone. And we have the 3D software that stitches it all together. So again, this is Fenway Park. We've flown this one over 60 times, but earlier when I was showing you the dugout, So the kind of the disadvantage of the drone is when you have overhangs, you can see it doesn't capture that because obviously you can see through to the street outside, but it doesn't do well with like overhangs. So that's why sometimes it's really good to kind of, depending on what you need it for, it's good to either go with the aerial model, which is a little cheaper and you can cover a lot more ground, or to go with the other model that I was showing. And that gives you it identifies different elements, different building materials. You can do a lot of measurements on both of them, but it's definitely more accurate in the building information model that I was showing earlier. And it's cool because in the building information model, you're able to dissect through different sections of the building. Like you saw how I stripped all this down so I could uncover the locker room, which sits right here. And then another use case for the drone is just you can see the varying conditions. So this is baseball setup for Fenway Park, but you can also see what they're doing when they have a concert. So you can kind of compare the two different setups. So this is their Live Nation setup where they have the stage. And touching on that overhang issue, we actually are working on several solutions that's going to allow us to capture with cameras on the ground and stitch in. So that shouldn't be an issue for much longer. But again, this is great for seeing the full site and the surrounding areas, and also having lifelike real pictures that you can view.
Yeah, even in the 2 years that we were working with you guys on one of these projects, you guys had different equipment both different times.
Right.
Definitely one was way more upgraded than the first one, and it took you like half the time to do the work. So it's really impressive on the different equipment that you guys use. It's
definitely, like you said, bleeding edge. New stuff's coming out. It seems like every month there's a new scanner that's coming out that is helping us speed up our processes, making us a lot more accurate, a lot better. So it's definitely an exciting thing, and it's cool to see like kind of the technology catching up to what we've been able to envision that we're going to be able to do in the future. So it's cool to kind of see it really come to fruition here. So I'm going to move on. I showed you this. This is just a picture of the camera. It's smaller than a phone, and that's kind of how they store the 360 capture that I showed you at that construction project. Here's just another view of it. So a huge benefit for the building information models, which is the ones that we create with the LiDAR scanners, is that they're fully customizable based on your needs. So we can capture things differently based on what you need it for. So some people, they might just need a set of PDF drawings just so that they can do foam estimations, or they can do safety planning and evacuation routes. But other people are going to be looking for the virtual tour aspect on the other end of it, where they want to be able to see everything. They want it all lifelike. They want to see what the color of the wall is, what the floor is made out of, all the furniture, all the desks. And then kind of in the middle of the road, they want to just be able to track all of their any exposed MEP. So anything that, like any sprinkler systems that run through the stairwell, or any kind of fixtures like sinks and toilets and things like that. But we are able to also go up into the ceiling. Anywhere where there's ceiling tiles, we can get above there and we can look at the different mechanical systems, and that allows us to track them through the building. And so this all is just, there's something for every budget. And our goal is to work with you to give you everything you need based on what your budget is. And so just to get you in the headspace, so how we do that is, this is just an image of our scan preview. So the yellow is where we walk. The red is where we took pictures. So like I showed you at that Grand Rapids project, you could click around, navigate around. And what's cool is we have the ability to show you exactly what you want to see. So as you can see here, it looks like there's some tables with chairs around them. If you're not interested in the furniture, we don't have to model that, because this is the data that we're modeling off of, and that allows us to pick and choose what we model. So if there are kind of maybe sensitive items in a room that you don't want to be leaked, that will never be modeled, because this is basically like a stencil that we use. So it really gives us the flexibility to model more or model less, and make it kind of as lifelike or as kind of simple as you want it to be. And then in addition to like our different levels of capture, we have the different levels of detail. And what that means is we could show you kind of a volumetric representation. Yeah, there's some kind of support beam here, or we can show you, yes, it's a steel I-beam, and we can give you the exact manufacturer assembly information, depending on if you're looking for kind of a structural inspection or if you're working to refit all of your HVAC system. And this is just kind of how it fits in different items that you find in buildings. So here again, volumetric, box form, just to show you, yep, there's a table and desk here. Over here, we're getting onto the higher end of the scale where it's actual asset management, where you know the exact chair that you have that you're sitting in, or you know the exact duct or the exact HVAC system. And so if you're looking to kind of manage assets throughout different buildings, like if you have a school district and you need to figure out what buildings might need additional resources, what needs to be replaced, depending on what your needs are and what your use case is, we have a lot of flexibility in our modeling. And also it's pretty exciting too, because if in the beginning you just need the LOD 100 overall volume, that's fine. And then if you later realize, oh, actually it would be helpful to have all of this, then we can easily go back through and update everything in the model. Like I said, it's a dynamic model. And then just a couple more. So here are the ducts, has the specific connections, valves, and supports, right down to the serial number. Or it's just, if you need a rough estimate, like this is roughly how much HVAC we have throughout the building. And there's something for every budget. And then just an example for exterior details like wall type, fencing, railings, anything like that.
All right, so this brings us to our first poll. This is where we're going to utilize the chat box. So our question to you guys is, what interior mapping use cases are you likely to have? Are you looking more at the local government side and the emergency and evacuation for buildings, or is it more of the drone side of things and using for the exteriors? We'd like to hear from you guys. Priya will help monitor that chat box to see what comes through.
And meanwhile, we have some questions as well, Tommy. So while people are responding, maybe you can help out here. People are asking about, have you worked with 911 agencies in incorporating this product into their CAD or Z level locations?
So we actually haven't worked directly with 911 response agencies. Usually that will be through our client, like for the public school systems that we have worked with, they're doing it for emergency response. So that's a big aspect of what we're all about here at BIMstream. We truly believe in empowering owners. And what that means is a lot of times it started out with 100-year-old buildings in Boston that might have been renovated 10 times. So there's no actual set of blueprints that represents what is truly there, what the exact existing conditions are. And so what would happen historically, if you need to renovate, you would have an engineering firm or an architecture firm come in. And this is kind of like what we were born out of. They would spend weeks and weeks and they would create all of their designs, all of their existing conditions drawings, and they would bill you for it. But the catch is that they own that data. A lot of times they wouldn't readily hand it over to you. And as an owner, we truly believe that that data is yours, that you need to have that in hand so that you can, like I said earlier, bid it out to the best bidder. You know what you have, you understand what you have, you understand what you need. So you don't kind of get like handcuffed into one contract because they spent weeks and weeks collecting their data and now they won't give that to you. And so what I'm trying to say with the 911 response is that when we give it to the building owner, we empower them with their data. And so they're free to then go and say to the local police agency, hey, this is our building. We need you guys to understand this so that in case of an emergency, you guys can respond as efficiently and rapidly as possible for the safety of everyone, and especially our students and teachers when it's in a school environment. And then they also have the power to go and turn it over to any kind of subcontractor who might be doing any type of work in their building.
That's great. I think it seems like this one person on the webinar is talking about 911 a lot. I think there's a question about CAD. So there's no CAD data that's necessary. You start with the floor plans and then supplement with the LiDAR scans to build the 3D BIM. I think maybe more of a process question.
Yeah. So if we want to get into the process a little bit more, so basically the first step is we go and we capture the LiDAR. And actually, let me see if I can, I'm going to start a new share here. And I'm just going to share my screen. So just to give you, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we still see the slides.
Can you see the chat?
No.
No? Okay. 1 second. Sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay. So you're going to get an infinity screen just for 1 second.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now? Can you see that video?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see this video here, bundle 001.
Yep.
So this is an example of the raw data that we collect with one of our LiDAR scanners. And so this is just this is in the app. So you can kind of see what it looks like. And this is called a point cloud. So every time it hits something, it creates a point. And like I was saying earlier, that gives us the flexibility to either model something, include it or exclude it basically in our model. And this is kind of what it looks like. You can get some color based on the scanner you use. It'll take just a second to render, but you can see these are all just the points. So this is the raw data. So if we wanted to, we could actually go, and if we were replacing this, or removing it, we could cut this out and see how much space it takes up. So this is basically like the stencil that we use. And from here, we model everything in, and we delineate between different structures and features in the building. So we mark where the wall is, we mark the floor, we mark all these ladders and everything. And then, and it can also be used to just go into different visualization software. So this is a super lifelike visualization, as you can see. Like if something went wrong in this mechanical room, you can see exactly what the equipment is, what tools you'll need before you even go in there. You can do clash detection and things like that. And so that gives us the ability to make the 3D model. And then from there, we can pull out the 2D PDFs like this. If CAD is a requirement, that's no problem for us. We can pull out CAD just like we pull out these PDFs. The idea is that it's all stored in this 3D model. And it's super intuitive, and it's super functional, just because it's instead of having a million different places with your CAD drawings in this server database and your PDF drawings over in a different folder, and then like some videos or renderings, it's all in this one contained model. So this model actually does carry anything you might need. We can export in any different format that you can think of. And it's not unusual to do DWGs or CAD drawings.
It's great because I think a few people who responded have talked about facility management and also emergency management. I think that's a big one for local governments, especially. So I'm glad that I hope this helped people to see how you can use this for both those use cases.
Right, and I do want to stress it. We love collaborating on new projects. So my main goal here is just to inform everyone who joined us today of what it is we're doing and kind of some of the different techniques that we use and the different data sets that we can produce. And our hope is always that we trigger a light bulb to go off for someone and they say, oh, maybe we can do this. And we're always happy to collaborate and come up with creative solutions to help you kind of advance your workflow.
And I think that's great, Tommy, because that's really the aim of these webinars, is to expose people to these solutions so that then they can get an idea saying, hey, I could use this for this use case, which, we might not even know about, that that there's specific to them. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much. And yeah, folks, if you have any other comments or questions for Tommy, we'll have a few more minutes, towards the end where you can ask some more questions.
Yeah, we just have a couple more slides. So the couple other use cases. Tommy, if you want to click to the next slide for us.
Yep.
Priya, I know Rich was supposed to join us from the town of Natick in Mass. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us today, but can you talk about some of the use cases that he had shared with us that he's done with his drone mapping?
Yeah, so thanks, Rebecca. It's really unfortunate that Rich couldn't be with us today. He's the GIS manager at the town of Natick in Massachusetts, and he has gotten himself a drone mapping license. So that's another route that folks could take is learn how to do the drone mapping yourself. And then he uses it across town for a whole slew of use cases. The one that I remember distinctly, which I think was really cool, was water tank inspection. And I think Tommy kind of showed this for the top of the roof of one of those buildings, is they need to do these water tank inspections on a routine basis. And sending somebody up there to do it is just a hazard, and it can be it could be icy up there. So I think it's been a really good advantageous use case for him is to have the drone available so that he can then send it up there and just take pictures of the water tank, and then that can complete the inspection. And I think there are a few other use cases that he's used it in construction projects, and once the construction is complete for looking at as-builts. And then finally, next slide, Tommy, what we'd also like to share with you is that all those with MapGeo subscriptions, a lot of this, not all, but a lot of it can be incorporated onto MapGeo. We could tile out the imagery and put that up on MapGeo, and then you can have that as a theme that goes on. You can also link out. So if you did actually get, any mapping through, using BIM mapping, we can always link out to it, and it'll be behind a login, and you can access your imagery or your PDFs or your maps that way. So this is another way that you can actually consume the product in different ways. So, we hope that you will think about all these use cases and consider indoor and outdoor mapping for your buildings as well. That's all we've got. Is there anything else, Rebecca, that you?
No, we just had one last poll question. If you go to the next slide, just to hear from you guys again, what some of your use cases would be for the drone imagery. Tommy's given us a bunch of examples. We had the examples that Priya shared. I know for the water tank inspections, a big part of that as well was the safety aspect, that nobody had to climb up on top of the tower to inspect it. They were able to just use the drones, and it saved a lot of headache for the safety aspect of that as well. So you can throw any comments into the chat box. And while we're waiting for those, we can just jump to our next slide. AppGeo is here to help you. We can have a collaboration, we can have a brainstorm. We're here to help you. We're here to think of some of the ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before. Hopefully what Tommy's presented today has maybe clicked on that light bulb for you guys. So certainly feel free to reach out to us. Our email is down below, and we will take any questions. I don't know if any new ones have come in.
Yeah, Tommy, do you integrate your 3D models with Esri's ArcGIS Online or portal? Do you know clients who've done that?
You certainly can. We can provide any different kind of like OBJ or XML, KML file based on what your needs are. We have our own kind of different sites that we use to host the data, depending on what your needs are. So as you can see, as I showed you before in the all those different aerial models, those are just hosted in on our own servers, but they certainly can be dumped into a wide array of different applications and softwares.
I think somebody's talking about a use case for easement monitoring. I think that would be a good one as well.
Absolutely. And then like just a couple other ones, like for the MapGeo, kind of like you were touching on that. It could be super helpful for kind of public presentations for proposed infrastructure or like municipal building improvements. You can use that. A lot of companies will take the aerial capture that we do to create actual renderings of like proposed projects. It would be really good for building permit submittals and kind of like construction site management throughout towns. Like in my town, I know that wetland conservation is a big topic. So to really understand the different buffer zones and where the different kind of tide lines are and marsh lines, that can be super helpful. Absolutely, infrastructure modeling. I saw that one just come in. We do plenty of that. We actually did a very large capture of 60 square acres in Kendall Square for MIT. We did that a couple of years ago, and over the last few years, the landscape there has changed pretty drastically for some of the big projects that they've done. And then another good one is just like I kind of touched on it earlier, is historic sites, whether it's for just preservation standards, keeping track of all that. And then I had, and a really cool one would be for MapGeo, adding it in, you can have detailed information on different like parks, transfer stations, dumps, boat ramps, and different conservation areas like that. That could be added into the map just to give kind of disseminate that information to the public so that they can everyone can understand what a different feature might have to offer.
Now,
Absolutely.
I have while you're waiting for folks, please do put in your comments and questions in the chat. I was just wondering, Tommy, if you could touch on the return on investment. I think like spending the money on BIM, I think in the long run probably would make sense to a project which might get into trouble because they did something wrong. Like I think you mentioned there was one project that you went in where they'd actually built something wrong, and then you had to go in and take the imagery for finding the faults. So can you talk on that about a little bit?
Absolutely. A lot of companies are using LiDAR to track progress, and it's actually helped a lot of different people to catch mistakes before it's millions of dollars down the road mistake. So they can make sure that everything is being placed. I know Suffolk Construction is a company in New England they use LiDAR pretty much every day to monitor the renovations that they were doing at Gillette Stadium. Go Pats. So, I mean, things like that can definitely help to make sure your progress is on track. Another way that, I mean, ROI, we work with Steward Hospital groups, and we're doing a lot of their hospitals. And one of their key use cases is for preventative maintenance and cost projections. So if they understand how many systems they have for different things like mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, if they understand how much they have, not only in one building, but across their entire portfolio, they can do these kind of cost projections, and they can actually end up saving a lot of money, whether it's in strategically planning out when they're doing projects, or if it's something as simple as we're going to need this much pipe at this date, but then we're also going to need it a year later for this hospital. So maybe there's a way that they can kind of bundle that purchase and save even more. Really, the use cases like that are endless.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great. We did have one more comment and question come in about the oyster farm project that you had shared. Have you done anything with beach nourishment projects?
So for BIMstream, no. But actually, that's something that me personally, I've been very interested in. I actually did my senior thesis on coastal degradation. So I went down to Puerto Rico, and I was able to map out a significant part of the coastline in the northwest corner up in the Aguadilla area. And because I'm very interested in kind of coastal erosion trends and, like you said, beach nourishment. And as a geologist, I definitely understand that it's not always, we have to work with nature, basically, especially in these kind of coastal environments. It's not always as easy as just building a seawall. Sometimes that can make the issue worse. So we're definitely open to doing these kinds of projects. Like I said, we love collaborating on those things. And I've done, I mean, aside from that seawall facade inspection, we haven't done anything specifically for beach nourishment yet, but that's definitely been on our radar.
Awesome. Yeah. So definitely reach out, send us an email, and we will have that conversation. I don't think any more questions have come in. So if you do think of any questions after this webinar, please send us an email and we will get back to you. Otherwise, I think we are all set for today. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. Again, we'll send out the recording and have a great rest of the afternoon. Thanks, Tommy, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Tommy. Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Rebecca. Bye.